you went public earlier this year, and the first few days were insane. I was at a meeting for this event with another network, and everybody was freaking out. They're going, what are they doing that we don't know? And your stock went through the roof, and obviously came down. We didn't think it was going to keep going that way forever. But just take me through, let's start there, the decision to go public, and why you felt it was important at this stage of the company's growth.
Well, we're a 27-year-old overnight success story. I mean, we started in '98, as many people know, Newsmax.com. I remember talkers said that we were the Bible for radio talk show hosts and producers. I think we still are the Bible in terms of news stories and ideas. And we morphed into a cable news channel in 2014. A lot of people doubted that success. And I didn't doubt it, but a number of people did. We overcame a lot of obstacles. We're now the fourth largest cable news channel. In Q1 of this year, we were number 5 of all cable for ratings, according to Nielsen. I mean, there's several hundred cable channels, so it's a pretty significant feat. Nielsen said 34 million people tuned in. Big numbers. That's just the cable channel. We have a streaming channel Nielsen doesn't rate. We believe that has about half the audience. We have the website. We have social media with 20 million followers. Reuters Institute last year came out with a study, and they said there were 12 top U.S. news media brands that people go to. Newsmax was on the list in the club. So I think it's a testament, not to me, but that there's a tremendous audience out there. Many of your folks that are here today in talk radio and the like are serving that audience. They feel like they're not getting the facts from big media like the New York Times or the big networks. And even Fox is failing and falling short. So Newsmax, I think, serves a very critical role, and the public's responding in a really big way.
Well, your Q1, I mean, you guys were up audience-wise 50%. Some of these other data points, I mean, we have a lot of people who run brands in here, and when you see up 42% with adults 35-64 viewers Monday to Friday and total day, tied number 1 with Fox News for prime engagement among 35-64. Those look great. The question is, how are you doing it? What's changed? Why is the product stronger this year versus last year? Because you had a good product last year.
Well, I haven't done a deep dive on why this year. I mean, I think increasingly in the era of Donald Trump, the media is just so polarized. When we started in '98, we still carry AP. And I would say AP leaned a little liberal. It was establishment, but it still tried to seek balance. It wasn't polarizing. What we've seen in the Associated Press, which is the major outlet for most news in the country, right, most newspapers, it's just totally polarizing, totally politicized. You can't use certain language. You know, terrorists aren't terrorists. Illegal aliens aren't illegal aliens. And if you do them, somehow you're penalized or violating something. And then there's these groups like NewsGuard and others which will censor you and essentially close down all your funding if you don't groupthink and agree to their worldview on every term. I believe an illegal alien is an illegal alien. I don't think it's derogatory to an illegal alien. I think it's accurate. And so the media has gone so woke and so left, and you see it in every media outlet. And President Trump seems to be a drawing factor for them. They seem to have just gone off the deep end. And I think that Newsmax continues to rise. And we will have criticism of President Trump on Newsmax. We actively seek out Democrats to come on. If you go on MSNBC, I remember there was a study of, in the 20 election, 80% of the Republicans on MSNBC and CNN endorsed Joe Biden. You know, hardly Republicans, right? Barely Republicans, if any. They're not Republicans if they're endorsing Democratic presidential candidates. So we believe in having both sides, and we still sort of do that as a mantra.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about your median age, because I don't know if you probably saw this poll, and it's interesting. We're always seeking to reach younger people. Every media outlet, whether you're in radio, television, everybody wants to keep adding new audience. But there's something to be said on a positive note about reaching an older audience because they're the ones with the money. They're the ones who are going to take care of our advertisers. Right. You guys, from a median age standpoint, rank older. That being said, that it's, as I said, a money demo. How do you look at, who your target is and whether or not is that the target you're trying to reach with your town? Because when I see Rob Finnerty or Rob Schmidt on television, I don't think that they're trying to target older, but obviously the older viewer likes what you guys are doing.
Well, the older viewer, let's say 45 plus, we call them baby boomer plus audience, right? Mm-hmm. They're now, the boomers are at least 60 now. And but the plus audience are the people coming in after them. They are the group with the highest net wealth in the country and the highest disposable income. Yet advertisers are not interested in them. They're anathema. They're problematic. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So I've always embraced the boomer audience, the boomer plus audience. We think it's great. And I have people come to me and say, we really need to target a younger demo. The truth is the younger demos are not interested in hard news. I mean, I remember the study that showed that Comedy Central was the main place for news for people under 30. Like, how are you going to compete with that unless you have a comedy show, right? And the value, there is a value for younger because the advertising agencies, but there's also a value that a huge number of companies, from pharmaceuticals to financial companies and others, health companies, need to target the older demo. That chart behind us, I believe, is inaccurate. And it has Breitbart and Newsmax having the oldest audience in the media. Well, there's Nielsen data, and the Nielsen data shows we're generally a little bit younger. CNN has an older audience. Fox has traditionally had like a 70-year-old average age. You know, the old idea that every nursing home in the country's got Fox on all day long, right? So it has, on average, a very high age. And Newsmax typically, because we were so internet-based and so many viewers from the internet, we tended to come in younger. Our streaming channel, we know, is a lot younger in our data. And then our website is usually in the early 50s. So we're not claiming that we are a young, hip demo in 35, but we are more in line than that data. I don't know where they pull it, and they don't really differentiate news sources on that study. They just said, where do they go for news outlets? Well, there's a lot of different parts to Newsmax. It's the website, TV channels, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But I think to your larger question, that the older audience is a very good audience. Mm-hmm. And there's not a lot of competition. Fox is essentially on television thought they owned that market. I think talk radio is still very vibrant because it still gets pretty good listener numbers. Mm-hmm. And ratings, and it still has a very affluent audience.
Let's talk about your lineup. You guys retooled it a little while ago. You've got Greg Kelly, Rob Schmidt, Rob Finnerty. But to somebody out here who doesn't watch it every day, where you're trying to get to watch it every day, what makes Newsmax product unique in today's marketplace?
Well, I always say, people like, what's the difference between your Fox? Just tune in. If you go to foxnews.com and Newsmax, you can do that sitting there. You'll see we just have a different worldview and how we approach the news. We're very news-centric. You know, we're not going to cover Shark Eats Boy in Huntington Beach. I mean, maybe it'll be there, but it's not going to be a lead headline on Newsmax. And, you know, we will be covering what the president said, what Jeanine Pirro was on last night, or the National Guard issues, or the mortgage crisis, or things like this. So we take very seriously the news. And I think I've had people tell me, you know, when they go to Newsmax.com, it's the best encapsulation of daily news. But on our lineup, we just announced last night that Greta is moving to 4 o'clock. Greta is very hard news, and a lot of things end at 4 o'clock. The stock market, Congress adjourns. We felt like she should really be in the middle of the news hour. Carl Higbie is extremely successful. His 5 o'clock rating has been as high as the 8 o'clock show in prime. We're moving him to 6 o'clock. The former Navy SEAL, Carl is an incredible TV personality. Rob Schmidt, rising star. Rob Finnerty is now at 8 o'clock. And 9 o'clock, of course, Greg Kelly, and then we have the Right Squad, a talk show, interactive talk program. So I think, have a very strong lineup, and it's going to continue to grow. There's always a lot of challenges, but we're seeing that people really like the hosts.
The state of cable news today, Chris, you look around, and especially like we could get into ABC News, CBS News, those are more newsy, but like when you look at opinion, which is what a lot of the folks on your network are doing and what people see typically in the traditional sense when you look at a Fox, a News Nation, a CNN, you know, the one thing you've looked at the growth over that time, finding your identity, doing something different. You mentioned a 27-year overnight success story, which means that at some point you were the underdog and you're still trying to get to that point. So what, as an underdog who's trying to become the lead, how do you go into it from a programming strategy standpoint against the main players up top that you're trying to unseat? Are there certain things that are important to what you do to make sure that you're leaning into that? Because it's no different than if you're the second radio station in a market trying to take down the giant, you have to do different things. How do you guys approach it?
Well, I wouldn't say talent is everything. I would say it's almost everything. And so it's critically important you get really good talent that resonates with the audience. When people are tuning into Newsmax, they say they like our personalities. And we have to find people that are unique and interesting more so than Fox. Because Fox just has a lot of gravity and a lot of geographic location, right? Just built in. So people have to really want to come. And the fact that we're getting the types of numbers that Rob Schmidt gets and Rob Finnerty and Carl Higbee, it's a really good sign that people are crossing over. You should know, and I know everybody's been busy today, we did break some news today. We filed in federal court a lawsuit against Fox News on antitrust grounds. Fox has been taking steps to target Newsmax and other channels, including One America and others, but largely Newsmax, to keep us off pay TV cable systems. Okay. And they've been doing these hinky agreements that block Newsmax, and if a group like Dish on Sling puts Newsmax in its basic package, it has to also take Fox Business and Fox Sports, which would add in license fees about $20 to $30 million to Sling's costs. And it's prevented us from going into some of these basic packages. So we filed. We also talked about them funding online smear campaigns against Newsmax and some of the executives and other things they've done. And we have it up on Newsmax.com as the lead headline. And we hired the #1 law firm in the country for antitrust, Kellogg Hansen, and they believe we have a very strong case. And the significant thing about this case, not only will we find out a lot of the things that Fox has been doing, I would say they're not a company that's always on the up and up. We will also see if there's monetary damages. They can suffer very significant penalties because under antitrust law, in civil cases, they have to pay triple. So if a jury will find they hurt Newsmax to the tune of $500 million, they would have to pay $1.5 billion. That's a hypothetical. But the point is, it's a very serious case, and we've been dealing with those issues. There's a lot of barriers for new media and for conservative media, and that was just one of them that we've dealt with through the years. Another
issue I know you were outspoken recently on was the deal struck between TEGNA and Nexstar. You know, for those who aren't up to speed on it, massive acquisition here that's going to expand television for both of those companies becoming one. What's wrong with that situation?
Well, it'd probably be like an hour dissertation to talk about it, but I'll give you the brief summary on it. That, you know, we've long opposed this changing of what they call the TV or horizontal TV caps. Ronald Reagan in the 1980s set a rule at the FCC, which everybody seemed to like, bipartisan support. No TV network, ABC, CBS, NBC, could own stations reaching more than 25% of the country. Because he realized if NBC owned every little station in America, which they could easily have done, they're going to control the whole political narrative. Local news, and even to this day, with all the talk of the internet, all the studies, Pew study, Night study, TV study, Insider, most people get all their local news from local TV because newspapers are almost dead. And secondly, they get most of their news from local news. It's where they go to. It's huge numbers. So we don't want a massive consolidation of power of any network, including Nexstar, which already got exemptions and waivers. They're over 60% reach. So over time, the 25% cap went to 39%. They found a loophole that got them to 50%. That's enough. And the station groups like NBC and CBS now hoard themselves and they go into the local markets in big places like New York, San Francisco. No surprise, they're all extremely blue, radically blue in some cases, thanks with, I believe, the help of those networks. Why would we give any of these station groups? Nexstar is not NBC, okay. Nexstar got a huge cable network, WGN America, and what do? They turned it into News Nation. It's left-leaning. For the last 4 years, Ashley Banfield, Chris Cuomo, and Dan Abrams led the nightly. They were attacking Trump every night. It was like MSNBC. Newsmax was targeted. And so we want to now give their reach to 80%. And so I believe that this is just not good, and there's not a real argument. The arguments that they use don't really match up. They'll say, well, big tech needs competition. The answer to big tech competition is not to let TV to have massive monopoly power. And so I think we'll get pretty big support on this in the coming months. I haven't spoken to the president about it, but I believe that he tends to be against big media, so I think we're in a good position to stop this merger. I'm more confident that we'll stop this merger than any other little projects that I've worked on. I've successfully blocked several mergers, so I'm more confident on this one than others.
Let's talk about streaming versus television. So you look behind us and you look at some of the data, especially I think the bottom right corner is really interesting, the share of television time by type. You look, streaming is rapidly rising. You see broadcast and cable coming down. You guys have been both, right? And I think today's world, most media groups are. Where do you see viewership moving in the future? Does that continue to come down to the point where broadcast and cable is coming down another 20%? Where do you see streaming's opportunities versus typical broadcast cable television?
Good question. And I don't know the exact numbers where everything's going to fall, but let's start with where things were 25 years ago, right? There were 120 million homes in the United States, and I think they went as high as 110 million pay TV satellite homes. That's now down into their low 60 million number. Newsmax is in about 60 million. We're on par now with CNN and Fox. MSNBC. So they're all in the low 60s, and they're the biggest channels. And so I could see the number going to about 50 million cable homes in the next several years. That said, I think the cable ecosystem is still going to be very profitable and will be a positive, good one for Newsmax and other channels. They're going to definitely need live sports, and they're going to need live news. And so we're in that genre, and I think we'll be okay. But it is a declining market, and I do see the streaming to be a powerful growth factor. And Newsmax 2 is our streaming channel. It's doing very well. We have Ed Henry at night and David Harris Jr. Rudy Giuliani does his podcast on Newsmax every night. So we're excited about the future, and that conceivably could be much bigger than the cable channel eventually.
Another big thing, speaking of future, is this. You guys just did a deal with Veritone. They're outstanding, especially in the AI space. That's a big term that a lot of people today are trying to figure out. Okay, how does this complement my business? What is a positive from a business standpoint? What are the concerns from a business standpoint? Where do you see artificial intelligence serving a positive and a negative to the media business in 2025 and beyond?
Well, Veritone is, as you know, an exemplary company. We're really glad. And what they're doing is they're taking our huge amount of content and monetizing the digitization of it. So we're really excited about that, and they have a great reputation in this field and outside the area of doing this. So we're excited. I think that people are going to be looking, AI, for instance, is going to be a big area of monetization. And already, you may not know this, but if you have media companies, AI groups may be sweeping your content. And, if you don't say anything, you're not going to get any money for it. But we believe that that would be a potential area of revenues for Newsmax in the years to come. AI is going to be very transformative, incredibly so, and it's going to have a lot of implications. But, making sure your content is remunerated for it is going to be really important.
How does it play in your newsroom right now and on your over-the-air product? Like, where do you guys utilize AI currently?
Well, in our newsroom, all our reporters are allowed to use AI, but it shouldn't be the basis of the story. It should be for background information. We have found that AI is not always accurate, so everything has to be checked, but it does speed up a lot of background information. For instance, I notice on ChatGPT, they constantly refer to President Trump as former President Trump. And so it's a little frustrating, like they just seem. And the other thing is AI is, you talk about the liberal media. I mean, AI is going to be just another form of liberal media because all it's doing is scraping the New York Times, the Washington Post. And it's amazing how we did an AI and we just said, okay, let's Rudy Giuliani background on his accident. And they inserted a whole section of every controversy involving Rudy that was not very benign about his voting stuff, speaking out on that. And it's like, why would that be in an article on Rudy Giuliani? If you put in something about Al Gore or another Democrat, it's not going to be talking about Jeffrey Epstein, for instance. But it seems like there's a real bias, and they're not even wasting any time.
What about, I want to switch gears and go away because you run the whole company. So when you're hiring people, I'm curious because we have a lot of hiring managers in here. What are you looking for when you're hiring a programming executive, a talent? What are the traits that somebody's got to have to get you to say, yes, I want to bring you into my organization? What are the traits that they can't have if they're going to work in your organization?
Yeah, we probably have now 550 full-time employees and contractors. Most of them are here in New York, although we have our headquarters in Florida and we have Washington, D.C. And we tend to like people working at the company, not by remote, although we do have some remote employees. It's a variety of factors. I mean, I'm big on continuity, that people are not just 10 years, 10 different jobs, that they've worked at a place, they have a discipline, and that they know their stuff. So that's like really big for me in terms of just any employee, even any talent, right? You don't want that they're leaving every 6 months somewhere. Talent's different because you look at their ability really to how they impress people on the screen. But also Newsmax has less depth than some of the networks. We don't have as much resources, quite candidly, that Fox and CNN has. So our hosts, our anchors and reporters can't rely on the level of producers. We have producers. We have, a typical show will have 20 producers and assistant producers and bookers. But, so other networks have even more people. And so we really need people that are smart and really know the new stuff. And if you look at TV greats like Oprah and Bill O'Reilly and others, they were really their own producer ultimately. So the real stars usually take it by the reins.
What does somebody do during an interview process to turn you off to not hiring them?
Well, I don't know if there's one thing, but I always think, be prepared. If somebody doesn't know anything about the company, they haven't done basic research, it's a sign they're just going to go into a job as a major life decision. If they don't know anything, and what does really impress me is if they do basic research and they have really good questions and they have ideas. Especially that, if they can give really strong ideas, then you see somebody who's really competent and able. So these are things we look for.
I want to ask you about the audio side. So you guys have Rob Carson, you got Jerry Callahan doing a podcast, guys have Todd Starnes, who does some work on the television side, who's also on the radio, who's got his independently syndicated radio show. Where do you see opportunities for Newsmax moving forward in audio?
Well, I think radio is still great, and I think podcasts are great, and they're an extension in my mind of radio. And, they go in and out. This just was, I think, recently a Wall Street Journal story about everybody's into podcasting. I think it happens every 2 years, is the story. But, so many people got into it because they heard that Joe Rogan or Megyn Kelly were making a lot of money, and they all thought they could make a lot of money. And I could name a bunch of people with super famous names that have podcasts that make no money from their podcast. It's hard. You have to develop a following, then you have to keep people engaged, then you have to get advertising and make the advertising successful. It's a business, and some people have it down well, like Joe. So with us, it's not a primary area, but we see it as a very important area and very synergistic to, because we think with radio, you take, for instance, low-value radio listeners, in terms of monetary, they're not as high valued as television, which are high value in terms of what the dollar per listener is or viewer. So we're taking those folks in their cars, they can't watch TV, and telling them about Newsmax programming and what they can tune in at night. I think it's a good deal. And so we see ourselves, we have been interested in getting in radio. We have bid on some potential radio or suggested ideas about acquiring some radio. But the truth is the market is very ossified because you have three big companies and they all have debt issues. There's not a lot of maneuverability, and I think they're all waiting for their final big deal that'll happen when they have to refinance their debts.
Can you see a situation in the next 5-10 years where Newsmax is more of a full-service network on radio, or do you see the company doubling down on podcasting more?
I'd like to be bigger on radio, so I think I should just keep it at that. There's all these rules now that I'm a public company about what I can say about the future. So I'd like to have a presence.
Just tell them it's going to grow. You'll be fine.
Yes, it'll grow.
If it looks like your last year with your ratings and revenue and stock, I think people will be pretty happy.
Well, we want it to continue growing, and we do believe that results will be strong. And I think there's a lot of good factors for news right now, and President Trump is certainly driving the news cycle in a very big way.
We got time for a question or two before we head out to lunch. Who's got a question for Chris Ruddy? Raise your hand so I could see you. Who do we got? Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
No. I thought I was going to go into business and finance, and I did my master's degree in economics at the London School of Economics. And I sort of accidentally ended up in journalism.
Who else has a question for Chris Ruddy? Go ahead, raise your hand.
It's amazing you can see up there.
I'm trying. Go ahead.
What are some of your favorite podcasts you currently listen to?
Well, I tend to listen to different radio hosts. I like Mark Simone is one of my favorites, so it clues me in on everything that's going in New York. And then I listen to our guys, Rob Carson and Jerry Callahan. I like Alan Dershowitz's one, because Alan, is only on for a couple of minutes, but he has a lot of deep thoughts about legal and political things. He's extremely experienced on these things. I do listen to Megyn Kelly. I think she's good and very provocative. So I get a mishmash of things.
Yeah, I don't know how you have time. You've
Well,
got to watch
I don't listen
product.
for the full hour.
You got to watch the product, deal with a potential lawsuit, also build a radio network, and also find time for podcasts. You've got a lot going on.
You mentioned potential lawsuit. Newsmax settled, as you may know, a suit for $67 million with Dominion Voting Systems. We also had done a settlement with Smartmatic. And people have asked me about that. And I would tell you that that litigation went on for about 4 years. And in any other jurisdiction other than the state of Delaware, we believe it would have probably been dismissed early on. Newsmax went and we did everything. And when this story happened in the 20 election, we said in the beginning, we just got to cover both sides. President Trump's making very serious allegations, but we also have to tell what the official story is on this. So we did that. Thousands and thousands of mentions, both supportive and critical of the president. And then we get sued by in cases where some of the individuals we believe were not even like watching Newsmax. And we go before the Delaware court. The judge is very close to the Biden family. He appoints as his chief legal officer Joe Biden's estate attorney's daughter, and basically prevented us from having a legal defense. He said all of our reporting on the election that was critical of the president, we couldn't show to a jury in both cases. And he said we had to show in the live TV within the program, which is usually less than an hour, a rebuttal to any statement that later turned out to be inaccurate, which anyone that's done live news knows this is a new standard, never been created before. And he did a number of things that basically stripped us of a legal defense. So in countries like Venezuela, if you oppose the regime, they confiscate your property. And Delaware was essentially doing a Venezuela maneuver on us. We paid the settlement. We didn't like doing it. But it's a watchword for everyone here. Avoid Delaware if you're a media company. And you don't even have to be political because, as Elon Musk discovered, these plaintiff attorneys and law firms have basically taken over the judiciary in Delaware. So you're not going to get a fair case. And so it's not just us, but there's many people. But a media company, of all companies, if you do live radio and podcasts, you can't be in Delaware because any company that's there can sue you and you're stuck and you can't get into federal court. So just a little warning.
Hopefully nobody's planning to go on and buy anything right now in Delaware. Anybody else have a question for Chris? I know you guys are hungry, so.
Yeah, well, enjoy food, and then I'll be here if anybody has a question.
Guys, give a warm welcome to Chris Ruddy. That
Thank
was
you.
great.
Thank you, Jason.